So there's a reasonable expectation that he should speak out on these atrocities against the Baka people, isn't there? I mean, wouldn't you consider his silence complicity? Hi, and thank you so much for joining me. Well, Prince Harry has no part in the day-to-day operations or ranger activities on behalf of Arica Parks. However, in my opinion, as a board member and indeed as a past president, he must bear some responsibility for its governance and oversight. Now, we've heard compelling and recent reports of acts of violence against the Baka people, and this did predate Harry's board tenure. However, the human rights organisation Survival International claimed the charity knew of abuses as far back as 2013. Now, to be fair to Harry, it's believed that he was first alerted in May of 2023, and a statement from Archwell Foundation said that he'd escalated concerns to the CEO and chairman of Arica Parks. Although, and this is significant I think, he made no public statement. So in my mind, that's unmistakable action or lack of action, a decision. So we have the ex-working royal who campaigns to further his causes, frantically trying to maintain the humanitarian brand, the social justice brand that indeed the palace originally created for him, a brand that he has monetized. He's also used it as a weapon against the royal family. In fact, his own late grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth II. Does Empire 2.0 ring a bell with anybody? Arica Parks apparently follows what is referred to as the fortress conservation model, which is known to take a very colonial approach, Empire 2.0 approach, and is provably harmful to Indigenous communities. So Harry is not coming across as a very convincing anti-colonist. His supporters counter this, though, by stating that he's pushing for internal reforms, which did result in the charity commissioning an independent investigation, though not surprisingly, they kept all the findings private. Obviously, the main blame should rest with the operational leadership. However, you can't have your cake and eat it too. A cliche, I know, but Harry seems to be basing his new life on it. He has pushed himself into a very public role, a high-profile position, and the way he's done that is speaking out on social justice issues. So there's a reasonable expectation that he should speak out on these atrocities against the Baka people, isn't there? I mean, wouldn't you consider his silence complicity? To date, his main critics are within Survival International, which is a human rights organisation founded in 1969. Now, it's based in London, and it campaigns to protect the rights of Indigenous, tribal and uncontacted people worldwide. Now, they do all the heavy lifting when it comes to protecting against land theft, forced development and genocidal violence. The very real suffering the Baka people have endured, and which has been verified. Verified reports have left many all around the world completely horrified. Now, Survival International do not receive any government funding. In fact, they reject it, as they wish to remain an organisation that's apolitical. They wish to remain an organisation that has integrity and not politically aligned in any way. Now, the Baka people are hunter-gatherers of the Central African rainforest, and they've suffered from displacement and loss of their land access, land that is vital as a food resource, land that is vital to their culture because it incorporates their ancestral forests. So expulsion from these forests has resulted in not only food scarcity, but also cases of malnutrition, again, proved, which has led to the death of dozens of children during the 2016 epidemic. Now, these Baka people have been forced into roadside camps or sedentary villages, which is absolutely horrific because they're a semi-nomadic tribe. They have a forest-based culture, and this has led to enormous social and economic hardship. Now, Baka individuals have been subjected to extreme violence and human rights abuses, which I can't graphically detail due to this being YouTube. However, it has been extensively reported, it has been verified, and there's been severe physical violence from eco guards and rangers that are funded by Arica Parks and also by the World Wildlife Fund. They have been imprisoned and beaten, plus credible reports of torture for poaching, which is in fact not poaching. They're merely engaging in their traditional hunting and gathering for food. They're just trying to actually survive, trying to eat. I want you to imagine something. If every time you left your house to go to the supermarket, you endured the same violence because some autocratic organisation deemed that all supermarkets from now are protected buildings and you are refused entry, and you're not given any other viable alternative, how would you cope with it? So it's just another example of Prince Harry being involved in activities he has little understanding of, yet he wields an inordinate public influence. He's operating outside the auspices of the institution that is equipped to determine that all organisations that royals associate with have been thoroughly vetted before they give their very important endorsement. And quite frankly, he's proven that he's not equipped, either by character, experience or brain power, to engage or make decisions like this on his own. He's proved it. He keeps stuffing everything up. He will continue to blunder his way around the world, ill-equipped to deal with any emergencies that require decisive action. Now, he's been engaging with questionable entities by association that have brought the Crown into disrepute. I point to their recent pseudo-royal tours of Nigeria and Colombia. Reports from the Daily Mail at the time stated that Harry and Meghan, while they were in Nigeria, were flown around for free by an airline whose chairman was allegedly a fugitive, wanted in the USA for a $20 million money laundering operation. Now, it must be noted, I've got to say, that the gentleman in question has never been convicted of any crime and he hasn't been extradited to face those charges. But at the very least, the optics are questionable, the optics are really bad, and they're really damaging. Another blunder. On their trip to Colombia, which has been clearly noted as having royal tour sort of characteristics, and it was even heralded by Tatler magazine and other worldwide glossies as a PR success. And they touted it as a royal tour, not a pseudo-royal tour. They interacted with government officials, community leaders and high-profile organisations. In other words, they acted like royal visitors, but without permission to be so. It's important to note that they are able to make these trips due to Harry's patronage of the Invictus Games. These games provide him with the perfect excuse to enter these countries, to be entertained by luminaries in these countries in royal style for 3 or 4 days at a time. We saw Meghan feted and fawned over as Princess of Nigeria. It's interesting to note that her DNA apparently reflects whatever country she happens to be in at the time. Just more compelling reasons why they should be removed from the Royal Family website immediately. There is no excuse in my mind. They are listed on there with glowing profiles, and their commercial enterprise, Sussex.com, is actually linked to from the Royal Family website. I believe an Act of Parliament should revisit the Council of State arrangements. I believe it was a rather lazy sort of solution to just add Princess Anne and Prince Edward as extra councillors of state so that Harry and Andrew wouldn't be called upon. I don't think it addresses the glaring Harry-sized elephant in the room. I believe very firmly that people do not want them called on. And so just adding additional royals on the list, although it ensured they wouldn't be called on, I don't think it's enough. I believe the majority of the King's loyal subjects want their names removed. Now, I'm aware that the line of succession is trickier. It requires an Act of Parliament. However, the formal removal of the HRH doesn't. That doesn't require an Act of Parliament, and I think it would go a long way in putting considerable distance between the institution of the monarchy and the melodramacito duo. So I think Harry has proven that he indeed cannot perform with dignity outside the umbrella of the institution. I mean, how much proof do we actually need? That is another unanswered question. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll be back to see you very soon. Bye.